Welcome, 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 folks. Today we talk about something very, very important. All of you who have children are staying home and helping them grow in a way that you have not done for this long at this time of year, probably ever since they were under 4 years old. So, before we go on, I want to say, and because what you're doing is extremely stressful and hard and almost impossible at times. Hopefully, inside of your heart, this door has opened to the realization that spending time with your kid in this way, different than in the parenting way, the teacher's position is, well, it's my favorite. I devoted my life to it. And it has a power to it and an ability to change lives very, very much like a parent. And I would even say in a different kind of depth than a parent can. You see, when we love people, like we love our parents and our brothers and sisters, we have an expectation of family and an expectation of blood, an expectation of how things are done, an expectation of what should be just for declaration because we're related. You love your parents pretty much by default unless they do crummy things, right? But a teacher must earn respect. Of course, they could put fear in the lives of their kids with grades and threats, and although those aren't teachers, those are public school staff members is what I call them. They're not teachers. The teacher takes on a role in which they often can be destroyed from. I'm a great example. I lived and do live a life where I have used to tell myself in the morning before I went to school in my 20s, I could feel that I was pissing off people I worked with and worked for, but I was never pissing off my students or their parents, the people who I really felt like I worked for. Now, the reason why I felt this tension was because I was a diehard, ridiculously proud, extremely excited person to make $31,000 a year and teach choir and acting to middle school kids. This was like my dream come true. Now, this is a goal that seems foolish to many who think about money and fame and success, and perhaps I shot low in one regard, but I knew that that was the life that I wanted. And I think if you talk to my students, they would tell you that I was one of the most excitable teachers they've ever had. And that is for one reason. Although I'm tooting my own horn, it helps for you to hear that and so that you know who you're listening to. I am telling you, I've worked directly with 7,000 to 10,000 young people since 1989. And I've built a company who've affected over 25,000 young people in Connecticut since 1989. So the point I'm trying to make is I'm not just talking. I am a teacher out of a proportion of most teachers who have families, lives, and desires to do other things besides their job. I was not that way, and I invented a school outside of school as well. Now, what you're doing, parents, what you're doing really is one of the hardest things that you may ever have to do with your child again. Leaving out life problems like, pregnancies and addictions and crime and stuff like that. Those are worse. But this is something that is going to draw out of you your leader. You see, a great teacher is not equal to a bad teacher. A great teacher can help and encourage a young person in tandem with great parents or in lieu of great parents. But it's really hard for a good mom to be able to out-parent a really toxic father who's connected as well. It's almost, no matter how great she is, she suffers immensely from the combination of the two, or vice versa. An empowering father and a destructive mother. But the teacher's role in the child's life, not just, I'm going to get daring here. I'm saying not just the classroom idea of spelling and grammar and stuff. I'm saying the personable, assertive adult teacher who talks and communicates and shares and loves and cares and is moving with the young person throughout their education. That was me. That was definitely me. I loved my kids and watching them grow. Now, what you're doing, I'm gonna take you through a little list, okay, so you don't feel so overwhelmed, and we can get you on track to make sure that you see that what you're doing is good, okay? So here's a few things to take in. Here's some information to take in, okay? You have to remember that the average person lives about 78 years, but let's just go to 80 for math. Let's say we live 80 years. Now, a child, by law, is going to be part of the U.S. government's public school system or a private school system, still by law, for the first 18 years on the planet. Now, we add college, and you're looking at 22 years, right? So, and let's say, I'm going to dare say a master's degree, and you can get up to 24 years. So why don't we just say, for the sake of argument, to come out with a master's degree or a bachelor's degree, it took me a while, you're going to be 25 years old before you start your life, okay? So the first 25 years of your life are government-enforced information, are adults leading you to the promised land of what you're supposed to be doing, and you now have the ability to go to prison for the rest of your life, to drink alcohol, buy drugs legally and illegally. You could be a father, you could fight for our country, you could be a mother. You have all the rights except you can't be president until you're 35. Now, I ask you, why am I saying this? This just puts in perspective what you're doing. So 1/3 of the life, going back from 80 to 75 for maths reasons, 1/3 of life is spent learning what you're supposed to do. The next set of 25 years brings you from 25 to 50. That's where most of us are at who have kids. Well, we know that's very different from the first 25 years. Seems much sadder. Seems much more harsh, more not as much joy compared to the first 25. And that's not your fault. That is life's reality. And then you look into the third set of 25 from 50 to 75 or say 80 years old, and you realize that is its own place as well. Now, why am I telling you this? Because you are spending some of the most wonderful years of this person's life with them. That you are spending their innocence and their strength, their speed. Watch a young person fall down. Oh my God, am I jealous? Watch a kid run as fast as he can, take a tumble and get up, and then do it about 27 more times, especially the middle school boys. You won't believe the energy and the conviction that their bodies and minds kind of maintain while they're trying to have fun. When you hang out with this energy for a long time and you're 25, you're 30, you're 40, you're 50, let me tell you what happens. They come together, okay? What you're doing right now is you're receiving a wonderful gift of youth osmosis. If your ego is big and your parenting power is, I am the boss, you're never going to get the osmosis. But, I challenge you to facilitate, not to teach. What? You don't know everything, we know that, you know that, and they know that. Teaching is not a display of I am the boss. Teaching is an act at which you pour a little bit of gas on top of a small flame. You gather other wood and things that can ignite, and you push them closer to the flame. You hope and pray that the whole thing catches fire. You can blow on it. You can fan the flames with other devices. But one thing you are to never do is to snuff it. You do not snuff it. And it can be snuffed in the smallest and most unidentifiable ways you can possibly imagine. As a parent, you may know some of these with your child, but as a teacher, you must know most of them. Because when you are discussing and working with someone who has the tension and the stress of trying to be accountable to the expectation of the giant, older, all-knowing, mostly in charge person in front of them, that creates tension. You want to understand that tension? It's very simple. Take a bottle of beer, open it up, drive in your car, and get pulled over, but do not drink the beer, right? You have done something wrong. I think it's illegal. However, you're not under the influence, and the feeling you're going to have with that police officer is the feeling similar to what a child has when he's hanging out with us or she. So, facilitating is the way you think. Because who wants to be near a fire that has to grow larger? Who wants to be burnt by a fire that has to grow larger because the person who's stoking the fire just decided to spray gasoline everywhere? I don't know about you, but I don't usually use gasoline when making a fire. It seems to be dangerous. The person throwing the gas on seems to go up in flames quite often. Do not throw gas on the fire. You simply want them to start looking around the woods for that which is burnable. That's your job. Let me say that again. You want them to leave the fire and to find that which can produce more fire. They need to feed their own fire. And once you commit to that, to each and every kid in front of you, for you, you kind of got lucky. It's just one or two, maybe four, probably not 10. I used to be alone with 340 12 to 14-year-olds. That was the highest. Sometimes it would be down to 150, and my regular group was about 55, 52. Now let me tell you what that's like. If for some reason I didn't like one of them or two of them, that didn't matter. If for some reason I knew that one or two of them, say, I don't know, deviantly broke into old women's houses and stole all their stuff, I could not let that show because I had to follow the valor of what they deserve. These two 12-year-olds broke into somebody's house and stole their money, yet they were sitting in front of me, and I had to teach them. I cannot judge them. It's a foolish, foolish waste of time. Forgiveness and love, compassion, empathy, sympathy, these are, it's not popular. I've never been popular in the government's eyes. But these are the fundamentals of teaching. Because in front of you is a sponge, and you are a bucket of water. If you are a bucket of filthy water, if you want them to see that they are filthy, then when they wring themselves out, they will see the dirty water. But if you go up to a villain of a boy or a girl, a real crabby girl who you know is hurting everybody, the queen bee who takes people down without even trying, who starts gossip and gets people going. You know her mom doesn't like her, and you know her mom is a lot like her in a lot of ways. The father left a long time ago, and they've made up stories about how evil he is because really she can't control her drinking and drug use. The amount of examples that I can cite of what I just said is crazy, and we turn it right around. There's the men who are destructive and abusive and violent, end up in prison, and shock the whole family with their egocentric arrogance. Egocentric arrogance. They're both real. They're all real. Pointing a finger isn't going to work. What you have to realize is the forgiveness that you must have immediately when this young person sits in front of you. Now, that person is your child. I couldn't imagine a better world to be in than one where I had a little bit of money coming in, even if you call it unemployment. My day was free from responsibility from a boss, somewhat, and my young child, by law, had to spend time with me to grow and to be conditioned and to be taught. I can't lie, the only regret I have in my life right now at 46 is not having a son or daughter to share that with. I've had thousands of students, and that kind of works for me. But in this day and age, with this lockdown and all that, this is where I regret living the life that I have. I wish I had a child to help right now, because I'm a son of a gun of a teacher. I love it. Usually, other people appreciate my contributions. So as you go through this day and you go through the rest of the days that we are locked down, if you want true growth in your child, I would tell you that what the government says to do isn't where the growth is at. Sorry. Where the schools say to do isn't where the growth is at. You have a unique moment now. One that could end up in divorce, one that can end up in rehab, one that can end up in therapy and counseling. Somebody could move out, somebody could get pushed into a boarding school. The anger and animosity is high because you've never had to do this before. Never. 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 Never, never, never. Never, never, never had to teach my crazy son. But I did every day for peanuts, buddy. Peanuts. But it was a joy to see how I was living my life. It was a joy. It's kind of cool because once you give your heart to thousands, nobody can take that away from you. You lie down at night knowing that thousands of people remember you. It's beautiful. You add that to this being your son or daughter. Let me tell you about parents. I loved my parents. I don't have them anymore, but I loved them. My father was a teacher like nobody else. You may not like his lessons that he taught me when I won't share them all, but he was a teacher. Eye contact, squared up with me, made sure I was looking at him, talked very clearly, checked for understanding by making me do what he said. This was daily most of my life. It became weekly as a teenager and monthly as an adult. There were times in the history of man that this was the only way we learned. We were taught by our parents. We were apprentices to the older. I find it to be beautiful. So remember, number one, be nice to yourself. This is very hard. Number two, if you're feeling overwhelmed and unable to keep the pace of what one human is expecting you to do on an hourly basis, your child, I will warn you that you aren't supposed to win that battle, but you just need to stay one step ahead. As they're working on the dinosaur project and matching Stegosaurus with the Stegosaurus outline, you have moved into the birds of the prehistoric time while you're watching them work on the dinosaurs. You know the birds are coming, and you keep that going. Girls, you are masters at multitasking. Okay, this is not a hard thing to understand, and you keep making them feel warm about the dinosaurs. Good job. Okay, wait, think about that. Does that look right? And then as they put their head down in it, you jump over here and go, what the hell are these birds? Oh my God, that bird. Birds. Okay, are you ready to do the birds now? Great, here we go. I'm going to take the birds over, and boom. Now what do you, and then they're probably going to go, and then you say, I don't know, is this something that we should talk about? And they're going to say, you see, now they're working on the birds. You look closely, you got to watch. Now you have to take in a lot. Moms, well, I shouldn't say just mom. Parents are great at this. Now you're watching for tiredness, exhaustion, time of day, light of the sun, how much sun is coming in the room, temperature of the room, since the time between meals, time between bathroom breaks. How long has it been since this person has stood up, used their legs? A great teacher is counting this down all the time and is not going to let anything they just listed affect the behavior of their students, because it's hard enough to teach. I think you're learning that. So you would immediately go, this kid's been sitting for an hour and 20 minutes. The next thing I got to do looks really hard. Hey, Brian, let's stand up. You know what? Let's take a walk. Let's go to Mrs. Jones' house. I bet she has some cookies. Mrs. Jones, we're coming over to grab some cookies. She should be in on your need for help. All right, what do you mean, Mom? The dinosaurs. Come on, Ryan, we're going to go get some cookies. Cookies, yeah, cookies, yeah. and there's no apology. You're going to move his body so that the blood is flowing, so you come back and sit another 2 hours and get him to understand these freaking birds. Get it? What you're doing when you teach is you know how it feels to be a person. I was not good at school after 10 years old. As soon as hormones came into my body and I decided that women were going to rule my attention as soon as hormones arrived, it was over. 6th grade was the beginning of me transforming into a 7th grade dating machine, because that's the only thing my body and mind told me to focus on. Now, at that same time, my teachers they hated me. If they didn't hate me, they looked like they did. And there was only a few who could really handle me, because I was quick, loud, comedic, angry because of my father's chaos at home, big in a sense of tall, popular because I was probably funny, or at least thought I was funny, and confident, which is a curse in some ways, only because my father taught me to be confident. So here I am, like a 7th grader, 12 years old. I have bravado. People have told me this as the years went on. I didn't know this. But I had bravado. I had a game, I guess, at 12. I liked to look good, and I really liked girls. So the point I'm making is, don't forget your humanness while you're hanging out with your kid. This is a parenting trap, too. I think it's awful that parents can't do this, but it's true. Like, you gotta not worry about being great and excellent in what your other people are judging you about, because they suck at it too, don't worry. But instead, think big picture, Think really, really outside, and know that how does it feel when you have to pee and someone's talking to you? How does it feel when you have to poop? You can't move, you can't get to a toilet, and someone is forcing you to listen to them. Do you hear anything they're saying? Or do you have a cold sweat, keep a good look in your face, and hope to God you're going to get to the bathroom in time? I mean, I didn't invent that. Billions of people on the planet have felt that. So does your kid. So does a child. And I think to ignore common sense stuff is a waste of time. And if I spend 45 minutes of my class time tending to their personal needs for 10 minutes, without them knowing I am, for 35, I'm going to make progress. If I tend to no personal needs in 45 minutes, they're going to combatively demand that I love them. They're going to want to be loved. They want to know how much you care before they want to know how much you know. If they see me as not paying attention to them, they will destroy. They will destroy any flow, vibe, or content delivery that I might think is cool. And they have a right to. You know why? Because someone forgot about them, and they're just children. When you get into the swing of things, you won't only feel like you're amazing. Other people will say, how do you do it? I mean, I've never really had someone who said, I was very, very highly regarded and had many, many teachers watch me teaching when the administrators figured out that I had a gift for delivery. The secret to the gift, it's very simple. It's called laughing. Laughing. Comedy. Humor. Don't ever take yourself so seriously about your teaching that you believe they should sit quietly without movement and hear everything you say. You might as well not teach. What am I saying? If you don't treat them like sweet people, they will be hurt. And if you aren't acting or believing that you are the warden of a prison, mixed with Oprah Winfrey, mixed with the Pope, mixed with, say, a superhero, then you're doing yourself a disservice, because that's the four quadrants you want. You want to be able to present like Oprah. Hey, hello! Everybody likes Oprah for the most part. I did. I always did. Oprah's nice. She's just nice. And she makes you feel heard. The warden of a prison. I don't call him nice. Usually it's a man. I think it's for good reason. But he has a horrible job to do, a job that many dads didn't do. Many parents weren't involved in a lot of the prisoners' lives. And he's got to raise a 57-year-old serial killer and make him think that he's a credible person who's, not someone who should someone who should be part of society. Even if he feels differently, it's hard for him to exercise negativity. He has a legal right to treat his prisoners with respect, even if all of us would struggle with treating a murderer with respect. The other element is like a superhero. I call it a superhero because when you teach and when you help a young person, especially if you do it for months and years at a time, things happen in which the children feel afraid. One incident for me is very powerful. Most people will remember it. It's 9/11. And I'll just sum it up with one little girl. I'll never forget her ever in my life. I was 27, and she made me into a man that day because this little tiny kid, she was really small. After the attacks and our towers went down and we had missed a couple days of school, we came back to school, and anthrax and lockdowns and all these drills were happening, and the fear was so high, and she had tears in her eyes. I'm like 6 feet tall. I was a lot thinner then. I was probably, I was still over 250 pounds, and she looked up at me and she had these big, big eyes. When the girls are small, girls have, they're cool because they have the same size eyes as men, right? But their faces are smaller. That accentuates their eyes, with eyeliner and eyeshadow. All that is part of, their beauty. So we know that a woman's eyes are different than a man's eyes in a way because they're much larger on the face and they stand out. So this little girl looked up at me. I don't have kids, I don't have a daughter. And she gave me those eyes, and she was filled with tears. And she said, just like this, you ready? Mr. C, are the terrorists going to come inside here and kill us? I got tears in my eyes because I'll never forget that moment, It was your daughter. It was your daughter that was scared out of her mind. And I put my hands on her shoulders, which seemed like it was almost down near my knees. She was so small. I bent over. And I'm going to call her Jenny, because she could be watching this. I said, Jenny, don't you ever think that someone is going to hurt you when you're with me. Mr. Colossale will not let anybody hurt you. When you're with me, you are safe. And she wiped her nose and her tears and ran like a clown, a class clown. She was funny, she's a funny girl. I took her tears away in one sentence that I meant. It was so obvious to me that even though I wasn't related to any of these children, that if a bad person, if a woman came in who wanted to hurt these kids, that she wasn't going to. If a man had come storming in with a gun to hurt these kids, and I'm not proud of knowing that that is in me, but you should be happy to know that that's who was teaching your kids. I would never, ever, ever, ever let somebody hurt a kid in front of me. And once you feel that, it never goes away. It never goes away. So she's probably 30 now, maybe 35, Jenny. I don't know, see her anymore. I don't even see her online, but I do think about her a lot, and I'll never forget that moment. The point I'm trying to make with this story is not how cool I think I am, but I think I'm cool when it comes to teaching. It's how cool I want you to think you are. Because really, we can change our country. We can change our world now. If that one house mom who's lucky enough to live on the $350,000 that's coming in from her husband would take in, say, another kid or two and try to teach or help or lead during weekday times when her obligations might not be that large, since there's plenty of money coming in. If she skipped the tan and the salon and maybe contributed to the well-being of the children in her neighborhood, well, I'm talking about an America that would be untouchable. Untouchable. And there's moms who can't afford to do that, or dads. I want to apologize because I sound gender focused on moms. I'm not. I don't want you to think that. I think dads could do the same thing. If somebody's making some money and it's enough for everyone to live on, and you have young children who could gain experience by hanging out with you, my God, I would think you would do that on purpose. At least for some part of the 12 years of training. The last thing I'm going to leave you with when you're considering how good or bad you are as a teacher is to understand physical touch. It's a little different because they're your kids, so maybe it's a waste of time to explain this to you, but I'm still going to open the door to this because I believe I had mastered or somehow figured out a way to keep all the politically correct, bogus, bonanza garbage prevalent, so everyone was thinking I was playing by the rules, and by keeping the traditional 1950s, 1980s, 1990s style of helping kids stay around. In other words, my teachers, I'm only 46 years old. I was in the public schools from 1979 to 1992. I went to college and became a teacher in about 1996 or 7 or something like that. I think something like that. Okay, so what I'm trying to show you is that it was just from 1980 to 2000 in which, if I had a boy who was rambunctious and really pushing people in a line, I would take both of my hands and put them on his shoulder. And then he would become still. Or I would take my elbow and give him a nudge and say, "Hey, Johnny, settle down." If a girl was doing something similar, if she was striking, I would be very cautious, but I would also take my hand and be able to place it usually on her shoulder, maybe near her neck, sometimes in the small of her back, if the situation called for it. But again, this was a smart use of physical touch to allow a young person to understand that in this moment they seem out of control, and that without words or pointing them out or embarrassing them or saying something, blah, 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 I can simply walk by and use my hand, in a sense, to bring it all back home. Okay? Do not be afraid of this. This is the demise. You have to understand that there's people out there that way up, they want to divide us and keep us separated and call it, and they want the feminists to hate men and men to hate feminists and black people to hate white people and Jews to hate blah, 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 blah. I mean, I'm not saying it's not important, but that all exists. But what it comes down to is, did this person thrive with you? Did this person grow with you, feel loved, and look at themselves as a potential of being a masterful person, being a great person, being a loving person, being a powerful person? That's your job. That's how you make America great. You build our young into machines of powerful love, of amazing awareness, of cooperation with each other and competition with themselves. Let me say that again. In cooperation with everyone and in competition with themselves. You see, you get them to be upset at the fact that they did not achieve that which they tried to do. Not upset at the fact that the grade didn't look good, that they're not going to get the car, they can't go out that weekend, they're going to be grounded, dad said this, mom said if I don't study, blah, blah, blah. No. You make them feel as though inside of them is this burning fireball. Because there is. And it's your job to say, what are you going to do with that fireball, Brian? What do you mean, Mr. C? I don't have, what are you talking about? There's the fireball burning inside of you. What are you going to do with that fireball, Brian? Well, my brother said I'm stupid, and my mom doesn't even, I don't even think, I go, Brian! What are you going to do with your fireball? You see, when they sense that you love them and believe in them to a point that you will become aggravated, they will look inside themselves. Love them. Love them. You'll get in trouble by folks who don't love them. You'll be mocked. You'll be threatened. But you know who will remember how much you love them their entire lives? Them. And then they go from 15 to 25, 35, 45, 50. And inside their hearts, they go, he loved us more than most. He loved us. I'm Greg Colossal, and this has been The New World.